human intelligence takes a lot less information to get trained, but AI systems need a lot of information to get trained. And also there are multiple layers of complexities
Even
there.
after like this crazy amount of work, all we are trying to do is a miniature brain, which can only take like very minimal things of what a human brain can do.
I think the biggest shift probably will happen when customer service. I mean, we are already hearing some companies removing the customer service roles and all that stuff, and implementing the chatbots.
What is a language learning model? So all of these things, the GPTs or BARDs or all of these are primarily based on language learning models. Welcome back, boys, and hi everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, Everything Product. We talk about latest technologies and several product management concepts. We are at our 56th or 57th episode now, and we have done several artificial intelligence based podcasts. And after doing all of that, right, we keep getting several questions to say, hey, Phani, I know you guys talk a lot, but there is still a lot of confusion in my mind on what is artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, what is generative AI, LLMs, etc. And that's what we want to talk about today. We want to go back to the basics, take each of these, and then talk in a very general terms of what these things are trying to achieve. Cool. Let's start with the very first one. What is artificial intelligence? Sidhu, do you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah. So going by the book definition, artificial intelligence is the simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, right? So, yeah, this is something that is good to read about, but people often don't understand what we're trying to do here, right? So maybe let's break it down into a very simple chunks to understand what AI is and how is that related to a human brain. So let's assume that there was a psycho scientist or somebody who is like being tasked to replicate the human brain. So and let's think through his brain to try to understand what artificial intelligence is, right? So then what would I try to understand is like, what is the purpose of the human brain, right? What does the human brain do from the point where we are born? So the human brain basically tries to understand its surroundings and then make connections, and it gets to reasoning and tries to create a hypothesis of what the world is and how to react to it, right? So the more you do certain set of things, the stronger the connections are, the easier is it to understand for you, and for you to do that task. So imagine you're trying to learn a car, right? So what you're trying to do is the first day you're making very small connections, but I think when you do that like over a time of 50 or 60th time, you have already formed those connections, and the connections are very deeper, and it's easier for you to perform that task, right? You don't need to consider all the things you have done while doing it for the first time, and it gets easier and easier as you do it more. So that's how the human brain works, right? So if you want to replicate that in a machine, how would you do that? So let's take the architecture of the brain, right? So what does brain have? The brain has neurons. It has around 86 billion neurons. So every time you do try to do a certain task, it forms connections and reasonings between these neurons, which are called synapses. And when you look, right, there are like multiple 86 billion of them, and making connections into multiple different neurons, right? So there could be trillions of connections that could happen. So that's how complex the human brain is. But comparing trying to replicate the whole thing with into a machine is at least not possible now. So what we're trying to do is we are trying to create a similar structure where uh, AI has neural nets, and these neural nets have different layers, and that's how it stores information inside, and these also make connections as we run a lots of data to it. So that's how I would simply put at it, right? So the more reasoning and more understanding a AI system has, the closer it gets to AGI. So that will also help us understand, like, the better it gets, the better it's getting towards that AGI, which is like similar to human intelligence.
No, that's nice. So if I take in a very general lens, right, you're trying to put a human's brain and then make artificial intelligence out of that, or like you're trying to create a human brain and then try to get artificial intelligence out of that.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
the funny
But there's
part
also
is,
fundamental differences between both of them, right? So when we look at human brain, that's like 86 billion neurons, but when we look at AI system, that's maybe tens of thousands or millions of them. So you look at the even the hardware which is there doesn't support what human intelligence is. And also human the intelligence takes a lot less information to get trained, but AI systems need a lot of information to get trained. And also there are multiple layers of complexities there, right, where as the connection gets more and more complex, there are layers to it. So, and also, right, your human brain processor information across different modalities, which could be visual, speech, sensory inputs, and all of that. But AI is trained to just look at one use case, which might be just language, maybe text or audio or image. So mixing all of this through multiple modalities is very, very complex, which the human brain tends to do it very, very simply.
Probably another way to say it is, even after like this crazy amount of work, all we are trying to do is a miniature brain, which can only take like very minimal things of what a human brain can do. But another thing is, like, even though we have so much efficiency to take all of that, we can't take it, and that's what the artificial intelligence systems can take. And that's good, right? Because we can take the miniature version of it and then use it for a certain use case, and that's what we are trying to do with the generative AI and things like that, right? Srinath, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first, I really liked your analogy when you compared the humans versus machines. I think that really helps us understand the general definition of artificial intelligence. I mean, I'll try to keep it simple since you already shared all the details. It's basically making machines think and respond like humans. It's basically understanding our questions and responding according to our questions based on how the machines have been trained on various data sets.
Let's add on to that, right? So let's go to the next terminology of machine learning. So, Srinath, how do you think that training happens for an artificial intelligence system?
Yeah, machine learning again is a branch of artificial intelligence where humans are training these machines to respond like humans. Let's take an example of Amazon Alexa or Apple Siri. All the engines behind this is all machine learning, where we are training Alexa based on the various data sets and all the data and respond to our questions. That's how I would keep it.
Let's go a little bit more deeper into that, right? I know machine learning is huge, and that's the way we are training the machines to do simple things for us. So, for example, if you want to identify whether that is a cat or a dog, you can clearly tell. You have seen several of them throughout your life, but a machine cannot understand that. So, Sidhu, maybe let me ask you this, right? What are your thoughts about supervised learning versus unsupervised learning?
Yeah, so to put it into very layman terms, Funny. So imagine that I am doing supervised learning, right? Supervised learning, what I do is basically I tell it, I give the machine a task saying that we need to predict cats in pictures. Then I also give it basically how does a cat look like. So you're defining what the output should be. So it is basically trained in a way that it identifies cats, right? So that's giving us a capability of doing use cases that we know. But unsupervised is more like you are not giving it an output, but you are giving it massive amounts of data, and it's basically creating these patterns. And maybe one example for that is, right, when we look at ChatGPT, initially ChatGPT was built for certain use cases, but as people were using it, the makers were surprised to see it also developed language capabilities where you ask it in a different language, it answers you in English, right? So unsupervised learning will basically not help you not find things that might not be that you're thinking of. So it might unleash unlimited possibilities is what I would say.
One more simple example to take, right? If you guys are using Google Photos, so every once in a while, Google Photos will come to you and say, "Hey, are these two pictures the same people?" So that is unsupervised learning. So their algorithm is going through a group of pictures and trying to predict who this person is. Because in the past you told that this is Sidhu, but when it finds a new picture where it's half the picture or Sidhu is looking in different direction, blood pictures, etc., it predicts automatically saying that hey, this could be the same person. Just for it to validate and learn, it's asking you that question. Now, once you give that, okay, that is Sidhu, you'll go back to that algorithm and say, okay, this is also Sidhu's picture. So let's continue refining all the pictures and find more Sidhu's pictures.
Yeah. So as we are talking
Got
through
it.
that, right, I was getting like let's maybe take a real life example and see how it works, right? So let's maybe take Facebook. So Facebook had tagging before. So that how tagging works is whenever you upload a picture, it basically suggests you the person's name, right? So let's assume that that's an AI, right? Like how did that do? Maybe the people who have created that have given the AI task of identifying. It gives you maybe 30 of your pictures, and it also gives it 30 of group pictures which you are part of, and you are basically asking it to predict who you are in that group picture. And if you predict it the right way, you'll basically maybe get a point, and if you don't predict it the right way, you are punished.
Mm.
So that's how the AI tried. So the more accurate it becomes, the more better it becomes. So it's basically creating a game by itself. But the next thing is your maybe unsupervised learning example could be where you are giving AI tons of data, and it actually forms its own connections and understanding of what it is. So maybe when you upload a picture, right, it describes what the background is, how the people are feeling, are they having fun, enjoying, and all of these emotions, which might not be done by a specific supervised AI which we were talking about before.
So, if
Yep.
I understand this correctly, can we say any Netflix recommendations or Facebook ads and all that are unsupervised?
I actually don't know, because what Netflix recommends is a relevant information for you, right? But what it's basically doing is based on the movies that you have watched, based on your location, based on how other people who are similar to you are watching. It's giving you
Yep.
relevant recommendations. I don't think it's unsupervised. It's probably more like a prediction algorithm which basically looks at certain inputs and then gives the next prediction.
Yeah, and they say that
Got it.
unsupervised learning is closer to human intelligence or AGI rather than supervised. Supervised is very, edge case oriented.
So
Right.
this made me think. So what a decade ago, Facebook was doing that recommendation of tagging. If you go to Instagram right now, and if I'm trying to tag people, it gives all kinds of crazy, crappy recommendations.
Same here.
What do you guys think is generative AI? So the problem. Let me start with you.
Yeah. So generative AI is, I think, a level upward from AI, right? A general definition of an AI. So generative AI is where you are helping it to understand a language and then respond or create something new, where AI could be something that is already existing, but generative AI is something which understands certain set of data and creates a new set of data based on its understanding and the conversation with you.
Yep. Yeah, actually, maybe we should have started with this one, right? What is a language learning model? So, all of these things, the GPTs or BARDs or all of these are primarily based on language learning models, which, in my understanding, is you give huge amount of language data on how humans talk. It could be different languages, and it takes all of that data, consumes it, and then understands how that language works, and then it generates things on its own. A very simple way to explain that is, in the past, if you think about it, Gmail, whenever you're typing, it used to predict what your next word is, and then it'll, with a click of it, you can just use that word instead of typing the entire thing. And that's how it started, to say, hey, our models can predict what you're typing next. Now it's at a very generalized way, where just give a very simple sentence, it can write on its own, and the sentence and the grammatical meaning and everything would make complete sense to it. Srinath, what are your thoughts on that?
Just adding to both what you said, I mean, a simple example is like a chat GPT, right? So you just give a question, and chat GPT has data, I believe, all data until 2021. So it, whenever you give a question, it basically looks into all the data and generate new data insights, and even give more elaborative details based on the question you ask. So that's how I would keep it. I know we also have like other tools like Claude AI. We also have Bard, which are all very similar, which are basically looking at the existing data and producing new data based on the questions you ask.
Yep. Um, let's go a little bit more deeper, right? We have talked a lot about language learning models, like a model understanding the human language, interpreting it, and then predicting additional things out of that. So I've been fascinated about Midjourney and how it does several things. Like if you just say Pope wearing a puffer jacket, that has become a huge sensation at that time, right? Pope wearing a puffer jacket, it could perfectly imagine that and give an image out of it. How do you think the generative AI is achieving that?
Yeah,
Sidhu, maybe
I
start
think
with you.
it's similar to what we have talked about before, right? It's trying to basically look at like all of this data and try to form connections that makes sense for it, right? And that's how even our human brain evolves, right? From the age we are born, from the point we are born, our brain is trying to sense the environment, and with all the inputs we have, which is like sensory pictures or uh, that's visual or voice and all of that, and make understandings of what the world is and how things are in the world. And even Midjourney is trying to basically maybe predict what you think is right, based on your prompt, and then generate something that is similar to it. So it's basically you telling maybe somebody like a graphic designer saying that I need a Pope wearing puffer jacket, and I'm assuming that prompt would be enough for a person to create it, similar to the AI, right?
Yeah. So I'll put it this way, right? So instead of using languages, what the algorithm is basically using here is a trillions and trillions of images that are available in the world, and it understands what a puffer jacket means. And if you clearly tell that, hey, it is a white puffer jacket, it is a gray puffer jacket, you can clearly understand what that could be. And then based on that, it can try to get a jacket, get one of Pope's images, try to imagine what a puffer jacket on a person would look like, and then try to replicate a thing based on whatever it has learned. And I don't know, what is that movie? I think Robo, right? In Rajnikant's movie. So a bunch of things will come together to form like a robot. I imagine it this way. So it's trying to get a bunch of pixels or bunch of images together, trying to formulate a similar thing based on the inputs that you gave.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Srinath,
in
what do you
data
think?
world, probably we can call it something similar to any semantic web or a data lineage and all that stuff. Where in this case, Midjourney is basically linking a lot of these images and inferring and are producing that output based on the questions you ask. So yeah, it's very similar to that concept.
What is
So
go ahead, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, your question is like, what is this data lineage, linked data, and all that stuff?
Mhm.
So, in like to keep it simple, right? Like in a web, and whenever you try to search for anything in Google, right? There's a lot of content out there, right? So, in order for it to respond to the question that you ask, I mean, you have to somehow connect one to other. If not, it's gonna give bad results, right? It needs to exactly respond to your question. So the way this web of data is linked is with a subject, object, and predicate, right? So these are the two nodes, and predicate is nothing but relationship. So for instance, I'll give an example, right? So Srinath has this book, right? So Srinath is a subject, has is basically predicate, and the book is the product management book. And another stuff you can take, like Sidhu also has this book. Here book is common, right? So it's linking. So like this, the whole the web, I mean, there's so much data, right? You have to somehow follow standards for it to link better, and so it can infer accordingly. So all this artificial intelligence or machine learning and all that stuff are designed in a way that that link is properly done, so it can accordingly produce the correct output. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were saying something?
Okay. So, what benefit is natural language processing or generative AI is bringing to the table here? What are your thoughts?
I can start. So going back to the my original philosophy, right? There is things that you don't want to do, or there is things that you can't do, and you want a machine to do all of those things instead of you, so that it can save time for you, or you can do better things when a machine is continuing to do things. But in order for you to communicate whatever you want a machine to do, uh, you don't want to learn a machine's language. So, for example, let's think of all the programming languages, right? Java, Python, etc. All of these are created so that a human can actually talk to a machine and tell it to do certain things. But over a period of time, what we are transitioning to right now is we want to make our life simpler. So what we are transitioning to right now is, instead of using a machine language, which is all of these programming languages, rather than that, can I just use my natural language that I use to talk to another human and tell that to a machine? So that's where we are getting at. That's how I see NLP too, where we are trying to help a machine understand the natural language that we use and make it process things so that it can do certain actions.
Yeah,
Making it easier and more easier for anyone, right? Like anyone now can become a software developer, right? Like
yeah.
earlier
So
we'd probably need that foundational skills.
yeah, and I think I'm also in the same lines, right? I was also like just thinking through this. So I think in the last 50 or 60 years, we have been trying to train machine to do certain tasks, and the biggest barrier for that was we were building a way to communicate with them in different forms and shape, right? That could be a language, a UI, or maybe manual buttons where we ask the machine to do it, because the biggest hurdle was us to translate what we are saying in a language that the machine understands, which there was no way to do it now. But now the way we actually talk to machines is like a we are talking to some other person and getting it done. So look at the level of efficiency we are introducing through this natural language models, right? Or generative AI models, where we are making the conversation very easy so that we can get our task done in a very, very efficient way. Previously, if you wanted to maybe multiply very two large numbers, you had to learn a language, then figure out what the syntaxes are, write a program to do it. Now you're basically typing saying that, hey, what does 10 power 100 into maybe 999,000 power 10, what is the number, right? There were calculators before, just complicating it. But yeah, I think that's how natural language processors are helping us.
That is true. Actually, I want to ask one more question, right? With all the things that is happening in the world, I'm sure both of you are like very interested to see certain things. So at least let's take a shorter term of next 3 to 5 years, right? Where do you think there will be major innovation by using AI or the generative AI that is available? Srinath, maybe let me
I
start with you.
can, yeah, good.
No, no, go ahead. I was just asking you.
So I think the first thing which comes to my mind is customer service, right? So until now, we had to call customer service to get our questions answered, troubleshoot, and all that stuff. I think the biggest shift probably will happen in customer service. I mean, we are already hearing some companies removing the customer service roles and all that stuff, and implementing the chatbots, which can do very similar stuff, especially for all the basic questions, which is already trained to answer all the basic questions. So that's where I see a major probably innovation happening. I know some companies are already doing it, like Twilio has a customer contact central tool where basically they are trying to using AI and sell it to customers so they can use instead of hiring so many people, which is a lot of manual overhead. And the second place where I see a lot of innovation also happening is healthcare and predicting any, like I'm sure you guys have seen the Google conference where I think Sundar Pichai shared about how you can read and predict and heart attacks or based on what's happening within your body and all that stuff. So I think that's a major innovation. I think that's gonna help a lot of people because those are some of the things which we can't predict. So I'll say second, healthcare. So these are my two topics. What do you guys think?
Yeah, at least like I feel that like there will be a lot of incremental value that would be created through AI, where all of the repetitive and similar tasks would be automated, right? But at a very, very high level, right? Like what is a very, very big impact in the base where we work? I feel that people do a lot of search, right? uh, for search for information, search for products, and directional, navigational, complex searches and all of that. So there is search in every product. There is search in Google, there is search in Amazon, there is search in Netflix, there is search in every product. So I think the way we find information would completely change, drastically change, and we wouldn't use traditional ways of finding information, which is maybe typing keywords and also using some filters to find information. So the way we ask machines information and also get information would completely drastically change. So that's one thing which I would say. The second biggest thing which I would say is, I think there would be more and more people who are empowered to do certain set of things uh, with AI, which they were not empowered to. So let's maybe take an example of a product manager, right? If I was a product manager, which I had access to an AGI which could do whatever I would ask it to do, right? It would be like very, very easy for me to build products, right? I'm the person who's doing the customer research, trying to understand the problems. Then I'll take the assistance of AI to build products. Maybe gathering feedback is also something which I'll do, but I'll give it feedback, and I'll keep improving, and I'll launch products as soon as possible, right? But in nowadays, I need a coding development team who does that for me and puts that into a solution form and make it usable for that, right? So I feel that AI will empower people, and there'll be more and more single person businesses and products than before. So
Yep,
these two are the big
makes
things:
sense.
search and empowering individual people.
Yeah, I'm on similar lines too. The first major thing that I would anticipate is software industry. So all the language that we were talking about, right? Like Java, Python, etc., etc. A bunch of these things needs to have a lot of formal knowledge in order for it to create products. And in order for you to create solve complex problems, right? It's not very easy. Only limited people can do that. So with this, a lot of complex problems, especially in the software side of things, will be accelerated. That's the first thing that I would say. And the second one, definitely in terms of like documentation, creating data, creating content as such would be like made extremely easy. But that's a problem as well. You will have extremely too much content in the industry that might be too much overwhelming for people too, because there is a lot of system generated content that is coming into the web as human generated content, because right now we can't distinguish which is human generated versus system generated. There is a lot of content there. It could be a problem too, but there's a lot of improvement that will happen there.
Yeah,
Uh,
another stuff which probably I'll just add to one of the cons that you said. Like if 10 people are writing an assignment, if they're using ChatGPT, maybe their responses will be same or similar, right? If they submit that assignment, I think there's a lot of plagiarism also going on. That can
Another
happen.
problem there is distinguishing the intelligence of a human could be extremely difficult right now, because think of it like this, right? Let's say you're trying to hire a person, and in the past, based on what the human is thinking, there'll be a lot of artifacts that is put in front of you. It could be a slide deck, it could be the resumes, it could be the case presentations, etc. But now with generative AI in place, a lot of content would come to you as part of that presentation, but you don't know whether it was generated by that human or whether it was generated by a system until you talk to that person in a very deeper way to understand that. So that could be a huge problem that the industry will have to solve.
Yeah, actually, I
Yep.
was also thinking through that, right? So I was like trying to see like what are the different scenarios, right? So I think in future, like imagine somebody who's creating content on LinkedIn, right? So previously it was his understanding of how to cook, hook the people, how to write an engaging story, how to translate the content which he thinks about into a way that people understand it, right? But now it is more like the person has to prompt the AI in a way that tells what the output he needs, right? Where he doesn't need skills in copywriting, he doesn't need skills maybe in that subject which he's writing about, and also he doesn't need skills on how to grab the attention or hook the attention of the audience. It's it, he knows what the output is, and he's basically giving it to the AI, and it's building it to it. And also that brings up a very important thing, right? So I've been hearing this argument a lot, that I think the demand for prompt engineers will become more and more. So now every software team will have one prompt engineer as a position, and that person is basically helping people build better prompts, or automating using some of the AI stuff. And maybe in each team in the future there will be just people focused on AI automation. You never know.
Yeah, true. Awesome conversation, guys. Thank you for your time. And for everyone who is watching, if you want to understand more terminology, or if you want to understand different concepts within AI, don't forget to comment. We'll be happy to talk through those.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you.